Hi. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ and Friends. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and today is the second Wednesday of the month, which means it's time for Hammer Your Way to Health with none other than Dr. Alan Goldhamer. You must know who he is, but if you don't, he's written two amazing books. Can Fasting Save Your Life, along with Dr. Tasha Myers, and The Pleasure Trap, along with Dr. Doug Lisle, who is also a regular monthly guest on this show. And once a month, he comes on and answers your questions that you have submitted in advance. So please make sure you do that. And please welcome Dr. Goldhamer. It looks like you have a new office.
Yeah, hardly. Just you know, I just got back from traveling and got a little bit behind today on meetings, and so I wasn't able to quite make it to my computer.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to pull over to do this. And so you said you were traveling. Where did you go, if I may ask?
Well, after a fabulous trip with you to your Rancho La Porta in Mexico, I had a chance to go with my family, my kids and grandkids, to the big island of Hawaii, and we spent 8 days there, so the kids could surf and visit manta rays and go snorkeling and boogie boarding and surfing and all that kind of stuff.
Your grandchildren are grown now, aren't they?
Yeah, my grandson is 22. He's just finished his second year at UC Davis, and he's getting ready to complete his college and then apply to law school. He wants to be a lawyer.
That's fantastic. So, which island did you go to?
The big island.
Nice. And so, this will be a great topic to start with because so many people can be compliant if they're in control of their environment in their own home. How do you manage travel?
Well, travel it can be a challenge because not every place is offering vegan SOS free food that's readily available. So one of the strategies that we have is when we travel, we make sure we have access to a kitchen. So we rented a large condo that could handle all seven of us, and managed to find a good place for organic produce, which was a place called Costco Foods. And Costco is the largest purveyor of organic produce in the country. And they do have a Costco on the Big Island. So we went and stocked up there, and we went to some of the local farmers markets and got local fruit and made 28 meals at our condo kitchen,
Well,
which I'm sure saved a fortune because eating out is really expensive in Hawaii, I think everywhere. But, you
so
know,
who cooked the meals?
I did virtually all of the cooking. So I spent a lot of time every day preparing three meals for seven people. So that was good. It was I was channeling Ramses, our chef from the
Hey, I,
center.
I just thought of something. Next time, just bring them with you.
Yeah, well, we had to have him at the center because even though we had seven here, we have 67 at the center. So I think it was more important for him to be there than with us. Although I'm sure he would have enjoyed Hawaii. It was a very lovely, environment and weather.
You mentioned they have a Costco there. Don't they sell the special potatoes in Hawaii that we don't get very often in the United States? They're the ones that are purple inside and out, not the Stokes, but the Okinawan sweet potatoes.
They had Okinawan sweet potatoes, but they also had wonderful cabbage and leeks and all kinds of stuff you wouldn't necessarily see um, in the U.S. Costco's. They have a lot of stuff that's very, Hawaiian feeling. So it was interesting. They had wonderful Japanese eggplant, and so we tried. We had to adapt our normal recipes and utilize the local produce. They had wonderful pineapples and papayas, and so we really did quite well. Um,
Did,
Everything in Hawaii is considerably more expensive than it is on the mainland, so that was an adjustment.
did you have any taro or poi?
I didn't have taro or pork. I've had it before. It's not. It doesn't. It's not. I don't know how you describe it, but it's rather, even for my taste, pretty bland.
If it's bland for you, then forget it for the
Yeah.
rest of the world. So, are you ever, I don't like the word when people say cheat, but are you ever flexible when you travel? Do you ever make exceptions? And I'm pretty sure that for you, you never make
Well,
an.
yeah, I did. I made an exception when I was at Rancho La Porta because even the plain steamed vegetables often had salt on them. So there was definitely more sodium intake than I would be used to. When we're traveling and having our own kitchen, though, we don't have to make exceptions because we're able to get, adequate control.
But not everybody travels places where there is their own kitchen. I'm just curious for you. I'm sure that we all have a line we draw. Like I'm sure that you never eat animal products and you never drink oil. But do you ever are you ever flexible with processed foods like sugar, oil, flour, or salt, or is it just a hard line? You'll fast.
Well, salt is a very big challenge, AJ. If you eat somebody else's food, as we found out, even in a health resort, it can be a big challenge. So uh, the thing about sodium, though, is that the goal is to keep on less than 1,500 milligrams a day. So there's a little bit of potential flexibility in there um, in terms of still meeting those targets. Although I have to say, I can tell I don't feel as well, even with those minor, variations in the diet. I can tell the difference in terms of how I function and feel. So for me, it's not um, it's a preference to eat healthfully. And so the compromise is not by uh, joy, but of necessity sometimes.
Understood. Well, that's fantastic. Now you're going to be traveling to Lithuania. That's pretty far. Have you ever?
Yeah,
And how do you think you're going to handle the food there? Will you be able to
I,
get any
I,
food?
I have no idea how that's gonna play out. Although the people that have invited me to come and give this health presentation to 300 CEOs, I'm sure will make a vigilant attempt to accommodate my peculiar uh, preferences to eating whole plant foods. But I have no idea exactly how that'll be. But fortunately, I know that even if you don't eat for some time, that the body is perfectly capable of preserving itself on its reserve. So I'm not too panicked if I
So
have to skip a few meals.
one of the things I do when I travel, because I worry about getting enough to eat, and I did this in Rancho, is I travel with certain snacks. Like, for example, I make a granola that's just basically dehydrated banana and oat, but it's calorie dense enough so that if I can't find something, I'll have something to eat. Do you ever pack travel snacks?
Well, before this Lithuania trip, I may talk to you about getting some of the crack that you make, because that certainly would provide the caloric density to carry me through if there was a problem.
Remember, I make two kinds. I make the high caloric crack that you call crack, but then I also make banana and oat. You really call that
Yeah,
crack?
yeah, no, that's the crack light. So that's that's.
Well, I'm going to be coming to True North for a couple weeks on Saturday, and I'll
Well,
bring
I'll have to have a cooking demo with you, and we'll have to show people how to make that, and I'll have to take the
it.
surplus.
It's funny that you said that because I am doing that because one of your staff is not going to be there. I've been offered all of her classes, and I'm going to
Oh,
be
the patients will be thrilled to find out you're going to be there. That's
right.
going to be
I'm
so
already on the
exciting for
schedule,
you.
and everybody, you can watch True North for free. We'll tell you how in 1 second. But I'm going to be doing three cooking demos and three lectures. And Ramses said I could use the dehydrator, and I am going to show the crack light. I'm not going to show the
Okay,
calorically dense
good.
one with the nuts and nuts butter, but I feel
Right.
like banana and oat. That's
Yeah,
like
that would be well appreciated. Just try not to overdo it. You're supposed to be resting too, so
well, no, but I mean, I'm not fasting this time. I mean, I'm excited. I'm really excited. So, guys, there's a thing called TrueNorth Health TV, and I can add it to the show notes if you want. But for years, Dr. Goldhamer has generously live streamed. He doesn't record these, but every presentation given to the guests and the patients at True North, you can watch for free. I don't watch all of them, but you can bet that every Monday at 2 o'clock, me and Susanna are texting each other while we're watching you because we sit there and we figure we love to hear how many times you say Chef AJ.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard not to say Chef AJ because a lot of our patients are your patients, so it comes up quite a bit. We have a whole cadre of patients that are driven either from you personally, but also indirectly because they watch your shows and all that type of stuff.
Well, that's why we do it. So you have some exciting news. You've been on the Rich Roll podcast, which is one of his top rated show. I think it's over
Yeah,
4 million views now.
Yeah, we've done really well with Rich Roll, who's a, really bright guy and strong vegan supporter. And I think probably in large part because of the extreme success of those two podcasts, I was invited next month to go to New York to film with a guy named Stephen Bartlett, who's actually the second largest podcast in the world. The only person that has more subscribers is actually Joe Rogan. And I'm still waiting for you to get me on the Joe Rogan show, AJ.
Yeah, yeah. But let's not forget who got you on the Rich Roll podcast.
I don't forget ever that,
I
yeah,
can't even get on the Rich Roll podcast
yeah,
anymore. So,
you,
yeah,
you were responsible for that, which is now responsible for the this Stephen Bartlett show.
yeah.
So we're excited about that. We're getting preparing some material for that as well. That'll be actually on the way to Lithuania.
Well, if anybody knows Joe Rogan, put in a good word for Dr. Goldhamer, will you?
Yeah, I think we could have a hearty debate because it turns out Mr. Rogan isn't completely supportive of a whole plant food SOS free diet. So
Yeah,
it might be a
kidding.
good opportunity
But
to have a debate about that.
here's the thing. I can't get you on the Joe Rogan podcast, but John Mackey was on. Maybe you could ask Mr. Mackey.
Yeah, well, that's a good suggestion.
I mean, he was on it, so that means he has a contact. So fantastic. Yep. Okay. Well, let's jump into the questions, okay? All
Okay.
right. Thank you. So, the first one is from Christy. I recently had a phone consultation with Dr. Wise from True North. I was hoping to do an at-home water fast, but he determined I am not a candidate for doing so because of my health issues and medications. He was very helpful and answered many of my questions and had great suggestions for continuing my weight loss journey. 82 pounds down since January of 2024. Congratulations, Chris.
Good. That's a good job.
Excellent. I've managed to put my psoriatic arthritis into remission, normal CRP levels for the first time in many years, and no psoriasis, but I'm still struggling with high blood pressure. My question is, how long of an unsupervised fast can be done at home and still be safe? I regularly intermittent fast for 14 to 16 hours.
Yes. So it's intermittent fasting of 16 hours a day every day is generally safe. It doesn't require any modification of medications. If you're going to do a longer fast, first of all, you want to make sure you're a good candidate for fasting. That means medical history, a physical exam, and some laboratory testing. If you are a good candidate for fasting, it's important to remember that any fasting, whether it's at TrueNorth Health Center or at home, you have to be resting, you have to be appropriately monitoring yourself, and you need to have access to medical support if it's necessary. So when we fast people at home with the doctors from TrueNorth that do that, we always work with a local physician so that laboratory testing, that emergency support is available if something comes up that needs uh, intervention. And our doctors provide, daily support remotely in terms of the normal questions that come up. And then after fasting is completed, it's really, really important that people refeed appropriately after fasting. That means progressive introduction of calories in a sustained way, because a lot of the materials that are actually eliminated in fasting are processed as you come off the fast and begin rehydrating and eating. So make sure you're a good candidate for fasting. Make sure that you're resting and monitored properly during fasting, and make sure you terminate fasting appropriately. It takes about half the length of the fast for progressive refeeding after fasting. If you do all those things, then fasting tends to be safe and effective, whether it's at the True North Health Center or if you're an appropriate candidate at home. Not everybody's a good candidate for home fasting, and particularly if there's medications involved or health conditions that require a higher degree of monitoring, then it's better to come to a place like True North Health Center to have that process done. But if you are a good candidate for fasting uh, uh, and you have a local doctor that's supportive, uh, our doctors can be helpful in making sure you get through that in a safe and effective way. And if people have a question, are they a candidate for fasting? Should they be considering that? We offer a free phone conversation with me where they can fill out their registration forms online, call me up, and I'll be happy to talk to them about whether this is something that they should be considering. If they want to get detailed fasting supervision, Dr. Justin Wise and others at the TrueNorth Health Center are able to provide the ongoing daily support that's necessary. The hardest problem really is finding local doctors that will be supportive. Many people's doctors are terrified, ignorant, or a concern about fasting, and so they're not able to always be supportive as necessary.
Well, that was good that she had the consultation, though, to find out that she wasn't a candidate for at-home fasting before she tried to do it
Right.
herself. Because I think a lot of people just do it at home without telling their doctor or anything.
Oh, I know. I get those calls from people that have come sometimes made a mess of things. One thing that's really nice now, AJ, is you mentioned our book, Can Fasting Save Your Life? And that book is really useful because it goes through all of the details of fasting, not just for the individual, but also for their doctor. If you have your doctor look at this book, they'll realize you're not completely insane for considering fasting because it's well supported by our own original research as well as the scientific literature. And it's written by Dr. Myers, who's really good at taking complex things and making them um, accessible to the average individual. So it's kind of an interesting book because it does both. It provides support to the average individual, but it also is written in a way that a physician or researcher understands the credibility that's associated with medically supervised water-only fasting.
Great. Thank you. And has the Audible version come out yet of Can Fasting Save Your Life? This book right here?
Yeah, there is an Audible version now.
Nice. Not
And
as good as the
so
Pleasure Trap, though, because it wasn't done
it's
by.
not as good as the Pleasure Trap. We had the most amazing person record the audio part of the Pleasure Trap. Some people like listening to the Pleasure Trap just to be able to listen to our reader, which happened to be Chef AJ.
That was a lot of fun, actually. A lot of words that I had to call you, like, how do you pronounce this? That was
Well,
fun.
that's because Dr. Lisle, who's the author of the Pleasure Trap, uses big words sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. That was so funny. So, thank you. The next question's from Laura. I missed the number when listening to both you and Dr. Varesh on the topic of toxins. Can you please explain why animal flesh eaters consume more toxins versus those eating only whole plant foods, and how much higher is it actually?
Yeah, that's a really important point. There's this concept called biological concentration. And that's the idea. Animals that are lower on the food chain are eaten by animals that are higher on the food chain. And that's why, when there was DDT put into the environment, um, the eagles and birds higher on the food chain that ate other animals that got exposed to toxin had biologically concentrated in their bloodstream. So think about it. Every day, an animal eats its diet, gets exposed to toxins in the environment or toxins that are given to the animal if they're, with animal husbandry practices. And they build up day after week, after month, after year. And then if you kill the animal and eat it or drink its milk or eggs, that lifetime accumulation of toxins has built up in the animal product to the point where there can be 2 to 1,000 times the concentration of the chemicals that you'd be finding, say, on your vegetable materials. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't eat organic vegetables and that you can't get exposure to toxins on vegetables, but they're not as biologically concentrated as animal food. And that's why animal food represents up to 90% of the total load that the average person gets exposed to of these dietary chemicals.
Oops, is your sound okay?
Yeah, can you still hear me, AJ?
It's just a little glitch, but it seems like it's fine now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so is it a big difference between animal and plant?
Yeah, if you just eliminate eating animal products, that is meat, fish, fowl, eggs, and dairy products, you can eliminate a significant percentage of your potential total exposure to toxins.
Fantastic. Does it matter if the plant material is whole plant food or processed plant food?
Well, processed plant foods tend to be higher in chemicals. In fact, ultra processed foods by definition are often containing chemicals and emulsifiers and other things that are increasingly turning out to be detrimental to our health. Emulsifiers, which were thought to be relatively, benign in the past. Now, what's interesting is they're finding out they profoundly affect the gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome uh, contain 1,000 strains of organisms, bacteria, 1 trillion creatures or more, and are an important part of your immune response and your defense mechanisms. And as a consequence, uh, altering the gut microbiome can profoundly affect your immune system. Are we still doing okay, AJ? I noticed you've frozen up here on the screen.
Oh, I'm frozen, so let's see if I can unfreeze myself. Okay, am I back? There we go.
Yeah, now you're back.
Thanks. And
Yeah.
I can hear you fine. One of
Okay, so the idea is that you don't want to be mucking up your gut microbiome. The most obvious ways to do that are to take antibiotics or drugs or things, but also these chemicals in ultra processed food have an effect, not to mention salt, oil, and sugar. Salt, oil, and sugar are chemicals added to food. They're not actually food. They're hyperconcentrated components of food added back to food that also can affect the gut microbiome.
amazing. So, Laura also has another question, and this one is about autophagy. And maybe you can explain what that is when you answer the question. But her question is, at what point during a fast do we reach it?
Well, you're always engaged in autophagy. Autophagy or self-eating is how the body gets rid of cancer cells and aged senescent cells and their inflammatory components. So the body's constantly eating up these things through autophagy. It just happens, though, that there are some things that enhance autophagy. And one of the most powerful ways of enhancing autophagy is fasting. And the deeper you go into fasting, the more effective and efficient autophagy is, which may be why you'll see, tumors breaking down and the gut microbiome rebooting and, chronic problems resolving in fasting more rapidly than it does even with healthy eating alone.
Thank you. This question is from Vi. Dr. Goldhamer, I was told by my hematologist that gluten is inflammatory and I should go gluten-free, which I have for at least 2 years. I don't feel any different. I've heard that glutinous foods such as Ezekiel bread and whole barley are high in fiber and healthy. Is gluten really inflammatory? What symptoms does non-celiac gluten sensitivity cause?
Yeah. So gluten is a protein that's found, predominantly in wheat, rye, and barley. And so products made from wheat, rye, and barley tend to be high in gluten. And a significant percentage of the population are particularly sensitive to gluten, particularly modern wheat, which isn't really similar to traditional wheat, which, it has literally different numbers of genes. It stands straight up in the field, making it efficient for harvesting. You get about 10 times as many wheat berries per acre as you used to get. So there's some advantages economically to modern wheat. But the gluten in wheat and also the Roundup that's used to desiccate it and act as a pesticide um, is thought to cause sensitivity in a significant number of people. Now, um, I'm just blanking on the technical term for Roundup right now. Um,
You want me to Google it?
yeah, Google what's the, I'm just blanking on the chemical name for Roundup.
Okay, give me a second and
Starts with an A.
what is the official name of Roundup? It says glyphosate
Yeah,
or
glyphosate. Okay, it's glyphosate. And so the glyphosate itself uh, is creates a problem for people. And so, and they use it to dry the weed out. So it's dominant in particularly non-organic uh, wheat products. So uh, sometimes people think they're gluten sensitive. They may be sensitive to the wheat, but it's not just the gluten that has potential for causing problems. But 1% of the population definitely gluten sensitive. They get what's called celiac disease, where the body's immune system attacks the intestinal lining, and it's very serious or even deadly. And you have to completely avoid gluten. But not everybody that's gluten sensitive gets celiac disease. Some people, instead of the immune system attacking the intestinal tract, it might attack the thyroid. And those people get what's called Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And Hashimoto's thyroiditis, the most common cause of hypothyroidism, is where your immune system is attacked. And gluten is thought to be one of the sensitive triggering mechanisms for that. In fact, the HLA-DQ gene associated with gluten sensitivity is the same gene that's often found associated with celiac disease. So uh, it can get a little complicated because it's not always just the one component. Uh, and it's not just the one organ system. So just because you don't have celiac doesn't mean you don't have gluten sensitivity. Another common symptom associated with gluten sensitivity are sinusitis, arthritis. Some people experience skin rashes and other things. So different people manifest different symptoms to their food sensitivities.
Okay. Every now and then I'm not hearing your sound. Is it just me, guys, or are you hearing a little bit of feedback coming from Dr. Goldhamer? Let me know if you are experiencing it as well. But so far, so good. Okay. Well, how does somebody know if they have just regular hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, or do you even know? Do they differentiate?
Well, yeah, you can check for autoantibodies, but about 90% of arthritis, or maybe even more, is autoimmune arthritis or Hashimoto's thyroiditis.
Got it. Thank you. This is from Maria. She says, I am very familiar with Dr. Goldner's program. She's referring to Dr. Goldner's program of
Yeah.
Goodbye Lupus, regular on this show as well, fourth Monday of the month. In the podcast, she says that you can have as much flax oil and flax seeds as you want gaining weight because of the way the body metabolizes it, unlike other oils. In no other way of eating, whether it be keto, carnivore, or Mediterranean, is there as much confusion and complete opposite way of thinking as there is in the plant-based world of eating. It's very frustrating. I so appreciate a response since I'm a nurse myself and I'm very cautious in recommending any set way of eating other than being plant forward to patients.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of nonsense. In fact, Jeff Nelson just did a whole show and an analysis of
But but
uh,
but
this
but
this this claim that you can eat unlimited amounts of this particular oil and not suffer the consequences. I just don't find any credibility to that whatsoever.
but her program has helped so many
Well,
people.
but again, I'm not denying that her program's been helpful, but it may be in spite of, not because of the claim that you can eat, unlimited amounts of flax oil. But if like I said, Jeff Nelson did a really extensive re analysis of this for people that are interested. You can tune into his analysis, and he'll go through the whole logic train with you. People
Okay.
make all kinds of remarkable claims, and that doesn't mean that the people aren't getting benefit and other things from different programs, but the explanation of why it works clearly is deficit in this regard, in my opinion.
Okay. Is there a way to you know how Dr. Greger says put it to the test? Is there a way to put it to the test and study
Well,
it?
I imagine Dr. Greger probably will also have an analysis on that, and he'll go through and review all the literature on it. To me, the whole thing's kind of nonsense. It's not really even worth, getting engaged with, frankly.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is from Anonymous. Dr. Goldhammer, is it possible to gain weight eating to the left of the red line? What that means is in my book, I have this concept, fruits,
Yes.
whole grains, and legumes, which is basically eating of foods, whole natural foods without sugar or salt of a calorie density of 600 calories per pound or less. I recently lost 190 pounds. Wow. And I'm finally in a right size body. However, I have noticed my eating has significantly increased and I'm very sensitive to not wanting to gain weight. I'm eating completely to the left of the red line, but sometimes it feels like I overeat, especially on certain foods like Japanese sweet potatoes. Is there danger of gaining weight if I'm eating exclusively to the left of the red line and overeat? Uh, Dr. Lyle has talked
So
about quite a bit.
yeah, overeating is never, a good thing. Overeating by definition, when you're to the left of the red line, is eating to where you're uncomfortable. You shouldn't be in pain because you eat. But the thing is, with these low density foods, it would be exceptionally difficult to sustain obesity because the normal mechanisms that kick in. But the fact that you were 190 pounds overweight at one point means, you have really efficient plumbing. You've got maybe less sensitive satiety mechanisms, and there are people in our society that have particularly difficult time with weight, and they're called women, and you're also a woman. So you kind of have all the things kind of going
Um,
against you in terms of,
Wait, the person that wrote this anonymous question is a male. I know
oh,
that.
he's a male. Oh, thank goodness. So he only has two-thirds of the problems.
Okay.
So as a male, you wouldn't have some of the additional challenges that women would have in sustaining normal weight. So I don't think you're going to have obesity issues coming up from eating sweet potatoes, but overeating can still be, an issue uh, pushing those satiety mechanisms. One way you can tell though is by just monitoring your weight and your weight stability. And if your weight is stable, then the issue of weight gain probably wouldn't be the biggest issue. I'd be more concerned about digestive distress or just um, eating for reasons other than you're hungry. Sometimes people are eating for reasons that have more of an emotional basis than a physiological basis. And even though you won't suffer,
Uh-oh, where'd you go?
did I lose you there, AJ?
Just for a second, you said even though was
Yeah.
the last thing I
So
heard.
even though you may not suffer the same consequences of overeating foods to the left of the red line, you still want to be aware of the fact that, you know, eating for hunger is a good thing. Eating for boredom, anger, or other things may not be as productive.
So are you familiar with some of the concepts that Dr. Lisle has talked about spiking the food, meaning that not to include things like animal products and alcohol and oils, of course, but that sometimes people overeat to the left of the red line because our ancestors did eat a little bit higher calorie density. Dr. Lisle has talked about how we evolved at a calorie density of average of about 700, and that eating exclusively to the left of the red line for some people, they need to have a little bit more of higher calorie density food. That doesn't mean they have to necessarily go to nuts and seeds and nut butters and bread, but he suggests things like tofu, for example, things like that, just or even sometimes corn tortillas. That they need maybe a little bit higher calorie to
Well, you can certainly,
what was
yeah, because our normal diet that we advocate,
of that.
this whole plant food SOS free diet that we advocate, um, does contain 15 to 18% of calories from fat. So we do include a quantitative limitation of nuts, or certainly if you were going to use slightly higher concentrated foods like you said, the plain tortillas or something of that nature. If you find that that's effective at helping maintain satiety without resulting in weight loss, I got no problem with that. That's consistent with the diet that we recommend and advocate and teach at the TrueNorth Health Center.
Right, because I've heard Dr. Lisle say that sometimes people overeat to the left of the line because they're seeking something more in line
Yeah,
with sisters
well, and
ate.
that's a simple experiment. You incorporate a limited quantity of those more concentrated foods, and if you find that that helps you get into balance, then I agree with Dr. Lau. That's a perfectly acceptable way of modifying the diet. Let's be clear, not everybody's exactly the same. So you have to be able to do a little bit of manipulation. It's just like we talk about the pleasure trap and the ego trap. Some people are really sensitive to the pleasure trap. They have a little bit, they can't control it. They're going to have a lot. It's a big problem. And other people are very sensitive to the ego trap. Whereas if they can't have any, they feel really deprived and it's a major psychological problem. Unfortunately, there are some people vulnerable both to the pleasure trap and the ego trap, and they're going to have a much more difficult time with success. Because if you have any, you want a lot. If you don't have any, you're psychologically distressed, and so it's a huge problem. Um, and so you also have to know some people, the pleasure trap is a major dominant factor, and other people, the ego trap is a major dominant factor. You have to try to be sensitive to individuals' sensibilities.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to run it maybe if the person would ever want to work with Dr. Lisle just to see and run the experiment if really overeating Japanese sweet potatoes does actually cause a weight gain, because those are the most delicious. The Japanese and the Hana, in my opinion, are so much more delicious than any of
Well,
those.
part of that's because they have a slightly higher caloric density. So, your brain is a calorie detection device. So, the higher the caloric, the
Yeah.
more you will be attracted to the foods.
Well, I
And
think
my question is, this individual that lost 190 pounds didn't say that he was actually gaining weight. He was worried about gaining weight. And
exactly.
so, what I would say is that, again, it's pretty easy to monitor, what your overall progress or issue is. And if you're worried about it, but your weight is stable, stop worrying.
Right. Jenny, hi Jenny, can't wait to see you in Vegas is saying it doesn't work for me. I overeat them. So the thing is I guess what I'm interpreting is because we get this type of question a lot, is it physiologically possible to gain weight eating to the left of the red line? And that
It,
because
yeah, it depends on what your weight is. If you're underweight, yes.
Yeah. No, the reason is I'm just an N of one, but I lost 20 pounds when I got pancreatitis.
Right,
And keeping the diet to the left of the red line, no matter how much I ate, I could not get my weight up. I had to. I mean, just this was me. And that's
right,
why, I was eating the way I was eating to lose weight, huge amounts, 2 pounds. I still eat a 2 pound Hannah Yam for
right,
lunch with a pound of broccoli. But when I had lost that much weight through an illness
right,
process, just left of the red line for me, I couldn't gain weight. Now, that doesn't,
right.
maybe I don't overeat as much as other people, though.
Well, and also, you have to remember there's big differences in individuals of their digestive absorbability, their gut microbiome. You've undergone treatment, which is affecting a lot of things too. So you're not probably a good, average person right now. And the fact that we have to feed you a little bit more concentrated food in order for you to be able to sustain your weight doesn't mean you have to compromise yourself into health compromising foods. It just means you have to get into a little bit more calorically dense foods.
And
And
I really good. Let me just tell you, they're delicious.
well, of course they are, and that and for some people that leads to obesity and other problems. It doesn't look like we're having too much trouble with obesity with you, despite the fact we've kind of modified your diet a little bit.
No, I'm still not doing very many nuts because they still are a trigger, but I can eat avocado, and avocado's amazing. And
Oh, avocado's wonderful as long as you're eating within your capacity. That's great.
I do eat bread now. So I'm eating, I mean it's SOS free, but I'm eating bread.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And as long as you're not gluten sensitive or you make the breads from things that are not
Yeah.
containing gluten, then you'll be fine.
Oh my God, we have a guy here. He used to be a brain surgeon and he became a baker and he makes oh my God, the most delicious oil-free sourdough bread. It's
Right.
gluten it's a gluten-free bakery. He's been on
The
the show.
the, the problem with that commercially is that the salt and the gluten has a certain texture, that people appreciate, and the salt is an active preservative. So if you're using salt-free bread, you have to use it fresh. You can't have it sitting around on store shelves for weeks without it going off. It's like so many things are done not because you have to have that for the food to taste good, but you're doing it so that they can make money selling it and maintain shelf life and all those kind of things. There's an awful lot that's done to food that has nothing to do with the necessity for good nutrition or health or even necessarily good flavor.
Yeah, this does have to be frozen or eaten immediately. You're absolutely right. Okay, this question is from Lori. I have heard you say many times that a healthy person benefits from a prolonged fast. If so, what are the benefits, and how often do you recommend a healthy person to do a prolonged fast at True North? I don't remember you
Right.
saying prolonged for a healthy person.
Yes, I do. Anything over 2 days is considered a prolonged fast nowadays, AJ. So, we recommend that healthy people, which by the way are quite rare, there's only a very small percentage of people that think they're healthy that are actually healthy. If you actually look at the known biomarkers, uh, physical assessments, and whatnot, you find out a lot of people that think they're, quote, healthy are just asymptomatic. They don't have obvious signs of disease, but they're not actually healthy. But assuming that you are talking about a healthy person who has normal values, normal weight, and function, what we do right now is we fast people for a week. If they're asymptomatic, if everything looks good, then we're done. And we do that once a year. And we're going to be doing a large study that's going to be looking at this very topic about what's the ideal, how frequently, how long, and how to determine that with non-invasive biomarkers. But right now, our protocol has been healthy people fast 1 week a year. We use it diagnostically as well as therapeutically. If they develop symptoms of detoxification or other things, we'll continue the fast until the problems are resolved. And then we have everybody fast 12 to 16 hours every day, have an 8 to 12 hour healthy eating window, exercise, and get plenty of sleep. And what we believe that's going to do is dramatically reduce the likelihood of debility. It's going to increase health span, not just life expectancy and lifespan, but health span, the number of years you stay vitally healthy. And we're seeing evidence of that in our patients now that we've been caring for 30, 40 years, where they're aging out and outliving not only all their friends, but in some cases, even their children as they get into their 80s and remain cognitively intact and fully functional. Um, you know, it appears that this pattern of eating and living and fasting is effective. Now we're going to have to do the study to prove it, and so we'll be enrolling people hopefully the beginning of next year in this long-term study where we'll track people the rest of their life.
Nice. How often do you fast every year?
Once a year I fast, and I don't like fasting because you have to rest and it's annoying, but it is, I think, one of the most helpful things that I've done for myself over the last 66 years is periodically fast, eat a whole plant food diet, and get regular exercise and adequate sleep.
Nice. Well, you're a picture of health, Dr. Goldhamer. This question is from Nicole, but I don't understand the acronym UWP. It says, can you quickly explain why caffeine in tea is not allowed on UWP? I know I'm missing something. Now, I used to have a program called UWL, Ultimate Weight Loss, and I never recommended caffeine for a lot of reasons, but specifically because Dr. Linda Carney did a whole presentation about how it can contribute to get weight gain. And I don't have that video to show people because it was part of a summit, but I'll let you answer that.
Well, caffeine has a 7-hour half-life. Even the caffeine you have earlier in the day still can affect things like sleep quality. And I believe that people have weight trouble largely because they don't sleep enough and they don't eat enough. I think if people would eat more and sleep more, they would have an easier time maintaining weight. They have to get enough sleep to have a good metabolic rate, good energy levels so they can exercise. And they need to eat so much food to the left of the red line that there's not much temptation left to eat the stuff that's more concentrated and results in weight gain, particularly animal foods and salt, oil, sugar, and refined carbohydrates. Uh, so I think that caffeine is a highly addictive nervous system stimulant. It affects the microbiome, it affects endocrine function. I think it's nasty and it should be avoided. And that's
But
why we don't use coffee, we don't use tea. If you're going to use an herbal tea where you could eat the plant, you might be able to get away with that. But I think what the liquid to drink is probably water. That's probably the best liquid.
But is there any correlation between caffeine and weight and addiction? Because Suzanne, I know you're here. Can we access that Dr. Linda Carney video, or wasn't it something like 17 reasons caffeine makes it harder to lose weight? Something like that, you know?
Well, I mean, it's the fact that it interferes with your gut microbiome, the fact that it interferes with sleep, the fact that it's an addictive substance I mean, just to stop drinking coffee and see what happens. You get headaches, you get withdrawals. You don't get headaches if you stop eating carrots for a few days, but you certainly do if you stop drinking caffeine. It's an illusion that this is a health promoting food. This is a health compromising food. It should be eliminated.
Right. Okay. But a lot of doctors think that green tea is so beneficial, but you
A
can,
lot
that's
of doctors used to recommend smoking to calm people's nerves. I have very little confidence in what uh, medical physicians have to say when it comes to healthful living. It's not really part of their focused training or education. And so that's not maybe the best source of health information as far as I'm concerned.
yeah. And the thing is if there are benefits in green tea, you can get it decaffeinated as well.
Uh, yeah, you can get it decaffeinated, but there's other chemicals besides just the caffeine that's a concern. So I would really focus on plants that you would eat the plant. And if you're going to dry it and make a tea out of it, that would be less obnoxious.
Why don't we just make this easier and answer all the questions the way you usually do? If you really want it, you can't have it.
That's absolutely the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. Diana says, Dr. Goldhammer, have you had any experience treating Meniere's disease? I think if you would hope you're doing, oh, no, that's me. She thinks of me. But have you had any experience treating Meniere's disease, if I pronounced it correctly?
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but healthful living. We also use fasting in some cases. There's mechanical components that we can be treated with cervical joint dysfunction. So, it is a condition that we experience working with. It's not an easy condition or pleasant condition to have to experience.
Okay, and mate, for people that don't know, what is it? Is it an inner ear problem or?
Yeah, I think the thinking is that it has to do with, dysfunction in the vestibular mechanisms in the body. I don't know if it's completely elucidated what all the different mechanisms and causes are, but
Have you
manifestations of the vertigo and dizziness and all that stuff.
have you seen patients improve with a water fast?
Yeah, no, fasting, because some people, there's different causes to Meniere's, and if there's an inflammatory component, then it's the one you would expect to respond most dramatically to fasting.
Thank you. Elle says, I went vegan, whole food plant-based, about 5 years ago. My body easily went down to its ideal weight of 116 pounds and stayed there for around 3 years, easily and without effort. About a year and a half ago, I reintroduced animal products to do some allergy testing, and I went on a 7-day water fast for frozen shoulder. It was supposed to be 10, but got stopped early because of how much weight I lost and other issues. I immediately went back on my whole food plant-based diet, but since then I've gained back around 15 pounds above my ideal weight. Now I feel like I can't get back to my ideal weight, and food is a constant struggle with my brain wanting vegan junk food and fast food. I feel like I can't stop myself from going out and getting it. It doesn't matter how many times I tell myself no and wait until tomorrow because eventually it wears me down. I'm really trying hard to fix this. Any ideas to help?
Well, again, I would consider the possibility of doing another fast, rebooting with a longer period of post-fasting recovery, diligent application to the diet, and also, if necessary, do a phone consultation with Dr. LIsle, who's really helpful at getting people to get in underneath and inside what it is that's motivating some of these aberrant behaviors.
Okay. Well, why would somebody, I'm curious, have to introduce animal products to do allergy testing?
I have no idea, except that for some people, what it is they're reactive to various forms of carbohydrate, and so they'll put them on animal food just to get them off of everything into a ketogenic kind of environment. It's not an approach that we ever take because we don't ever use animal products. Uh, so, not something that I would have experience in trying to justify.
I wonder if if she said she fasted. I wonder if she fasted at the TrueNorth Health Center. And that's pretty cool that a frozen shoulder could be alleviated by
Well,
fasting.
and any inflammatory product has a chance of responding to fasting because fasting has a very powerful ultimate anti-inflammatory effect. Now, during fasting, inflammation actually can go up, and if keeps because it's part of healing. Inflammation isn't the enemy. Inflammation is the part of how the body tries to heal. It's when inflammation is not successful that you develop these chronic problems. And so we've had significant improvements in people with chronic frozen shoulders and tendonitis and tenosynovitis conditions that respond to the combination of fasting and sometimes the therapy that we do, including chiropractic manipulation, Graston technique, physiotherapy, and the other things that the doctors at TrueNorth Health have in their bag of tricks.
That's funny. My chat crashed, but I saw a question from Vi about getting tired after eating lunch. Susanna, do you have that question? Because it was in I lost the chat when,
Well,
um,
getting tired after a meal is not uncommon. And oftentimes it's a result of blood glucose levels going up, insulin going up, and then driving sugar down. And so, one thing you can do to try to avoid that vacillation is to make sure you always have lots of greens with your food, whether it's fruit or carbohydrates, because the greens and the high fiber tend to slow down the rate that the sugar absorbs. It tends to mitigate some of the inappropriate insulin response. And if you have a lot of insulin resistance, then you might want to resort to doing some exercise or even fasting can be helpful at reducing insulin resistance.
yeah, I found the question. It said, what to eat for lunch to avoid the 2 p.m. overwhelming desire to take a nap.
Yeah. So again, I would focus on salad and steamed vegetables so you don't get an inappropriate um, glucose response. But you also might want to figure out, is there other issues that are taking place? For example, again, sometimes people get tired because they're sleep deprived. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. Some people, it's because of, as I said, insulin issues, and that you can manipulate the diet to try to minimize that.
That's great. Thank you. I just saw a question. Where did it go? Here we go. You're going to love this one. What about dark chocolate?
Yeah, I don't see chocolate as a health promoting food. We're trying to eliminate oil, we're trying to eliminate sugar, we're trying to eliminate salt, we're trying to eliminate caffeine. Chocolate's kind of the 2,500 calories a pound. You might as well just melt it down and rub it all over your belly where it's going to end up. And then when you're done, you could wash it off and you wouldn't have to carry it around all week.
Did you ever have chocolate in your life?
I'm sure I did before I was 16 years old. Um, I don't really remember a specific, have been in the
So,
diet of, prior before I made the transition.
so you don't remember, because I know you made the switch at 16,
Yes.
which was 50 years ago. You beat me by a couple of years. So you don't remember, like as a kid growing up, having chocolate chip cookies or Oreos or anything like that.
No, I wouldn't have probably been Oreos and stuff because my mother was a baker and cook and she would make everything. So anything I would have had would have probably been made by her. And I would imagine, I don't recall, but I imagine there would have been cookies or, stuff that uh, stuff like that. I can remember blintzes and kugel and things of that nature, but I don't remember specifically chocolate.
But what about up until the age of 16? Did you get a birthday cake every year on your birthday?
Uh, Birthday cake. I don't know if that was a tradition or not. I'd have to with my relatives. I just don't think birthday cake was too because even before 16, when I became hardcore, I was still pretty health conscious. Um, in those early teen years. So I don't think it would have probably been too much of a birthday cake. Maybe carrot cake or something. We can ask Dr. Lisle because he knew me from when we were a kid. And so he would know, he would remember. I'm sure we must have had carrot cake and,
Okay.
that kind of stuff.
I'm going to text him right now and see if he responds before the end of the show because I want
Yeah.
the answer. But your son, did you raise your son get having birthday cakes?
No, no, my son didn't have birthday. What we did do is we had a birthday party from one time. We took a huge watermelon and then made watermelon balls and melon balls and fruit balls, and we put it out like a big kind of had candles in it. And the kids loved that. They did great with that. I don't think they missed the chocolate cake or whatever would have been the equivalent.
Okay. I'm texting Dr. Lisle and
Yeah,
hopefully,
ask Dr. Lisle if we had carrot cake when we were, a kid.
okay. And he doesn't, he might be in session. Okay. But if not, we'll give the answer next month. We promise everyone. And thanks for sending your questions. And here's a question. Um, a follow-up to chocolate, but cocoa is healthy? Is it okay if it's cocoa powder?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of cocoa powder. You can probably make a better case for it if it was just, naturally does contain caffeine and other undesirable substances. So that's not a substance that we use at TrueNorth Health or that I would recommend.
But supposedly you can get decaffeinated cocoa. I don't do chocolate because it, makes my heart beat too fast.
Yeah, and then you say, how do they decaffeinate? What is it, benzene, or what are they using to do that? And why are we manipulating foods that we wouldn't just eat in a whole natural state?
You know why you don't like kiwi, because you can get it completely raw and unprocessed. And you once said it's a gateway drug to the use of chocolate, but I don't think it's
Okay,
like chocolate.
well, that's good. So it's good that maybe there's something that is, I'll have to look into it more deeply. But to me, it still seems like an ultra processed food. I don't see any.
So look into it before my cooking class a week from Saturday, because if it's allowed, I can take just the raw carob I can make a low calorie density treat. Very
Yeah,
easy.
let's try to make something without ultra processed foods at the TrueNorth Health Center.
Oh my God. Has anyone ever used the word buzzkill when they talk about you?
No, they'd say I'm just amiable and friendly. I'm just
Oh,
collaborative and cooperative.
you crack me up. Okay, this,
Mellow is the term that usually comes to mind.
yeah, and flexible, extremely flexible.
Flexible. Yeah, I'm flexible.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so this is from Tessa. How do I get my husband to eat more like me, whole food plant exclusive, and give up the lifestyle that is not good for his body? He loves meat, processed food, snacks well into the night time, and he is a social drinker. He's overweight, short of breath, and is frustrated that he can't tie up his shoes. He sees me as healthy, but he can't make the changes.
Yeah, he needs to spend some time at TrueNorth Health Center. You need to bring him to the TrueNorth Health Center. We need to introduce, at the very least, a healthy diet. If he's a good candidate, have him reboot with a water fast, and hopefully, uh, salvage him before you have to be spending your time changing his diapers as he ages out.
But the thing is you can't force somebody. A person has to want to change, right?
Right, right. So again, have him watch the videos, read the books. One way to get him to read the book is to empty out the bathroom and put the pleasure trap or the Confess and Save Your book on the toilet, and he'll be in there for long periods of time, and there'll be nothing else to do. He might end up just reading the book by default.
Well, but this is the problem. This person isn't unique. A lot of people are still caught up in the pleasure trap. It's very easy.
Yeah, most people are, and it's a huge challenge.
Yep.
But
So
sometimes when people get sick enough and desperate enough, they're willing to do dangerous and radical things like learn to eat well or exercise or go on a fast. And so you might just have to bide your time. Other people, I remember one woman came home from the center and her husband was a smoker, and it was a concern to her. But he was a considerate smoker. He would smoke outside, and he was trying to be considerate with it. And she told him she appreciated his right to keep smoking, but if he was going to keep smoking, she would appreciate it if he would dramatically increase his life insurance because she'd like to have a really nice style with her new husband. And he said that then after that, every time he went to smoke, he pictured his wife with a different man, and it drove him crazy. And finally, he quit.
that's wonderful. The cocoa question keeps coming up because they're saying it has to be healthy if it's 99% cocoa because it has polyphenols.
Yeah, no, just because it has polyphenols doesn't make it, quote, healthy. And cocoa may be less unhealthy than the ultra processed chocolate and this. I still don't personally consider it a health food.
Thank you. So I think you have time for one more question. We appreciate you doing this, even though you couldn't make it to your computer. And this is from JC. I don't know I'm not good with grams, but I eat about 800 grams of frozen mango blended into ice cream every day. Could this result in detrimental insulin spikes that would compromise my health?
Well, 800 grams, 100 grams is 3.5 ounces. So that's a lot of frozen um, fruit, you know. And if you're not getting plenty of greens in your diet, uh, that may be a potential challenge. So you might try reducing the amount of fruit, increasing the amount of vegetables, and seeing whether or not you can function and thrive, uh, with that. If you're getting plenty of greens in there, I don't know that it's an absolute limiting factor, but that does sound like a lot of frozen mango.
You know what we used to do when I went to culinary school? So we have the champion juicer like you have, and we would make ice cream, just with frozen banana or just with
Mhm.
frozen mango. But what we would do for blood sugar is instead of giving people spoons, we would give them huge stalks of celery that would be their spoon so that
Well,
they.
that would be yeah, that would be a nice idea. I should have thought of that actually. That's a really good little gimmick there, even including for kids and stuff. Use the celery, but get them to eat the celery, not just
No,
use
no,
it to
they
scoop
would
the
have
stuff
to
in.
eat it, and we would look for really big ones so it was like a spoon, and then
Yeah,
they.
yeah, no, I like that idea. I think that's a really good idea. And celery is one of the things that works really well at helping neutralize some of those effects.
Nice. Okay, well, I know there's more questions, Susanna, so
Well,
please to
maybe we
next
can get to the rest of them next time, AJ.
month. Well, Dr. Goldhamer, thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
It was
Talk
so
to you
much
later.
fun.
Look
Thank you.
forward to seeing you at True North there. That's
I'll see
really
you,
exciting.
see you on Monday. And if you guys
Okay.
want to watch me there, just sign up for TrueNorth Health TV. It's completely free. And please come back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific time for Victoria Moran. She's going to be talking about her new book, How You Can Age Like a Yogi. Take